Rebecca, and I am the field representative for Territory 38, which is the western half of Georgia, pretty much from Tennessee to Florida, along I-75. However, currently, the field rep for Eastern Georgia has retired, so I'm also the field rep for Eastern Georgia and South Carolina and Virginia. Before you ask, yes, I do. I really love my job. I do. This is the best job I've ever had. And my husband and I, we were discussing it, and we said if we won that $1 billion lottery last year, you know, when we would retire, and both of us love our jobs, and we would take amazing vacations, yeah, but we would keep working. I really do love my job.
Good.
So what we're going to do today, I'd like you to tell me where are you from?
Arizona, Glendale, Arizona, Dream City Christian School.
Okay, so K-12, primary, secondary, or both?
K through 12.
Okay.
Dream City.
Yeah, Dream City Christian School.
That's an awesome name. Sweet. I'm Nate King. I'm from Manitowoc Lutheran High School in Manitowoc, Wisconsin. So it's just south of Green Bay, on Lake Michigan, and I run our international student program there. So being a PDSO is very important to my life.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Primary, secondary, or both?
Sorry, it's high school.
Okay, secondary.
12, yeah, secondary.
Okay. And just for them?
Kristen Kreitner, and I work at First Presbyterian Day School. We're a K-12 Christian school, but we only accept secondary students for international.
Hi, if you'd like a business card, grab one coming in.
For elementary, for middle school.
I'm Amy.
Amy?
Cool.
Nice to meet you.
Rebecca Andre.
But elementary, we don't.
Amy, where are you from?
Arizona.
Hey, another Arizona.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
Yes.
And what grades do you have?
We're K-12 and we can host 7 through 12, but we have
So
just
secondary.
just secondary.
Okay. The reason I'm asking primary, secondary, it gives me a better idea of how to focus this training. Today, what we're going to be talking about is advanced DSO training, which I don't consider advanced at all. I consider this basic knowledge. And if you don't know this, you really shouldn't be a DSO. So that's what we're going to
Thanks.
beginning DSO training, that's, you know, what is an I-20? Y'all know what an I-20 is. You know what the I-17 is. So today, basically what we're going to be focusing on is statuses. What are statuses and what to do within those, the I-20? You look scared.
No, this is good. I was just going to be smart and be like, no, I don't know what an I-20 is actually. I do know what an I-20 is. I'm going to just listen and I might
She's
smile.
here for business.
No, I know, I might smile, but it's because I'm holding the comment back. That's why.
Okay, I got it.
Just so you know. And if I really have a question, I'll really ask it.
Speaking of which, don't hold your questions back. If you have one, be brave, say it out loud, because you might be brave, but somebody else has the same question and they're not brave. So ask the question out loud. Also, we might not get back to it, so please ask.
It's fair.
So what we're going to talk about is, let's see, okay. This is basically what we're going to go over today. Change of status, change of education level, transfers, reduced course load, completions, terminations, correction requests, reinstatement. This is for the I-20. These are student statuses. I am going to skip ahead and show you a one-pager.
Can I get curious and just see if that front light bar turns off? I'm gonna try. I'm gonna start turning off all the lights. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's perfect.
Okay, because it helps me to see the screen better.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I don't have it.
And if we would email you, could you share this PowerPoint with us too?
No, but the presenters here, the school came.
Okay.
So basically what I wanted to show you is this. How many of you have been on studyinthestates.dhs.gov? Okay, as I mentioned to her earlier, Study in the States is a website that's founded and operated by SEVP. Study in the States and ICE.gov have the same exact information, except the Code of Federal Regulations is housed on ICE.gov. They also have the same information, but it's long bureaucratic sentences, no pictures. It's hard to comprehend. Study in the States is awesome. Now, if you go to Study in the States, about 96% of your questions can be answered just on that website alone. 3.8% of your questions, you'll need to come to me for policy guidance, and there is 0.2% of questions that have no answer. Not gonna lie. Now, student statuses. When you go into CVIS and you create a new initial I-20, do you have any questions about how to create an I-20 or what's the process before that?
Me collecting all the documents from the families.
Any questions about what you do? I don't want to skip things that you don't know.
So just creating the I-20 is what you're asking about right now?
So you would need to collect financial documentation, the admission requirements that are listed on your I-17, and of course, any other requirements that your school might have. You gather that, and then you can issue the I-20 to the student. Now, these are student statuses. The first one up here is draft. This page is on the resource library. You can print it out. So when you go in to start an I-20, it creates a draft I-20. Once you click create, you have a new initial I-20. You send the new initial I-20 to the student overseas. They pay the I-901 fee. They take the I-901 receipt and the I-20, and they apply for a visa at the U.S. Embassy, which I believe currently is $180 for a visa. They just went up in price. Now, they do issue visas up to 365 days prior to the program start date. Please remind your students that even though they may have their visa 6 months beforehand, they can only enter the U.S. up to 30 days prior to the program start date. So you're gonna have kids who come in for the summer and they're gonna have to leave and re-enter. So remind them they can only come up to 30 days prior to the program start date. You send the new initial I-20 to the student overseas. And when they're overseas, they decide not to come to the US. You cancel the I-20. Cancel is no harm, no foul. It's just a canceled I-20, canceled movie ticket. You send the new initial I-20 to the student overseas. They pay the I-901 fee. They get a visa. They come to the US and immediately go AWOL. You terminate the I-20. They did something bad. You send the new initial I-20 to the student overseas. They pay the I-901 fee. They get a visa. They come to the US no more than 30 days prior to the program start date. You go into CVIS and register the I-20. This changes it from initial status to active. When you register the I-20, you will need the current session start date, the current session end date, and the next session start date. That changes it from initial to active. The student maintains that active status throughout their career. At their program end date, they have 60 days to do something. They can transfer to another education level, primary to secondary. They can transfer to university, from your school to university. They can go to Disneyland. They've got 60 days to do something. Now, let's say they want to transfer to university. I like to think of the I-20 like a ball. In your hand, the I-20 is active. You throw it out, transferring it out. It's now deactivated. Nobody is touching it. The other school reaches up, grabs it, and it goes back to initial status. So.
And then with that current F1 visa, just to make sure my understanding is correct, as long as they can enter the country with that current visa, they don't have to get a new visa with the current school's name on it, right?
So it depends on that. Give me just a second, I will go back to the visa.
Okay, sounds good.
So you have an active record, you transfer it out, it goes to deactivate it because no one is touching it. And then the other school transfers it in, it goes back to initial status to start again. However, on the 60th day, the record will auto-complete. And they need to have left the US by that time. Now, that is an excellent question. Visas. A student usually has one I-20 for their whole life. So that should be one student, one I-20. However, in some situations, if a student comes into the US, if a student leaves the United States for more than 5 months, they would need a new initial I-20 in order to re-enter.
Yeah.
So a visa issued to a student remains valid even if expired, as long as the student, 1, remains in the United States, and 2, maintains an active status. So if they need to leave the country and go on vacation, they will need a new visa to re-enter if their visa expires.
Yeah. Yep.
So when, sorry,
Go ahead.
so when you do the transfer in, like you got a student that was in another school and now he's in your school, does that student need like a new F1 visa? No.
No. So that visa the student is holding will have the previous school's name on it.
Yeah.
And that's fine because within the SEVIS records, that's where the student started.
Okay.
So if I go into the record, I can see, okay, the student holds a visa with this school name because the I-20 was issued from that school. And that's perfectly fine.
Okay.
Now they can remain in the US on that visa as long as they're staying in active status. If they're terminated, they need to leave the US, period. But if the visa expires while they're in the US, they can stay in the US on an expired visa, as long as they're maintaining that active status within SEVIS. If they leave the US, they need a new visa to re-enter though. All right, so these are the statuses we're gonna be going over. I highly advise this student record status for F1, M1 students in SEVIS. This can be found on studyinthestates.dhs.gov. Okay. What do you use the I-20 for? You use it to pay the I-901 fee. You use it to apply for a visa. You use it to enter the US. If you have a student who's already in the US, you use the I-20 to do a change of status. We're going to talk about change of status in just a minute. You're really not going to have much of that, but we'll just go over it quickly. And what else could you use it for? You can use an I-20 to apply for a driver's license, social security number, and they're not going to be working because y'all are K-12. Okay.
Can the high schoolers still work but for the high school?
God, I hate this question.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, I'm gonna ask
The
you.
answer is no.
No.
The answer is yes.
Oh, yes?
So an F1 student can legally work on campus in the servitude of the student body, up to 20 hours a week while school is in session. So
Oh,
can a K-12 student, high school student work on campus? Yes. In the cafeteria, in maintenance, in the library, in the servitude of the student body.
so like, sorry, I interrupted. No. If students are staying during the summer, so school's not in session, but students, international students are still living here. And like we have some current high school students that are just American students that are painting, doing maintenance work around the school, mowing lawns. Could international students work
Technically, yes.
at the high school during the summer? Okay. Yeah, that's just been my understanding, so I want to make sure that it's a correct understanding.
It is correct.
And I would definitely talk to my rep or call SEVIS before anything happens to make sure that I'm doing it the right way,
To
so
be
I don't get
honest,
anyone in trouble.
what you've just described is perfectly acceptable.
Okay.
You can approve that. However, just for record keeping requirement, leave a note in the student's record that they're doing that. Do you need to report it? No.
Okay. Got it.
What was your question?
Can they tutor like students from the same school?
Technically, yes.
Okay, you get paid for it?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
But if they're getting paid for it, they need a social security card because the US government likes its money.
Yeah.
They may need other things, but technically, if they are working on campus in the servitude of the student body, they can. I would be cautious with that though, because you are K-12 in K-12 schools that have students that work or work on campus, it'll bring scrutiny to your school. Many times, if I see it, the first thing I think of is human trafficking. So,
Okay.
but that's what I think from my point of view, because it's a horrible thing and I see it often. So be careful about that.
So
You can do it, it's legal.
the underlying current idea is you have to be wary
Yes.
if you are gonna enter that.
I mean, from what he said, that's legal. From what she said, that's legal. From what I heard, perfectly fine. But if I see a bunch of kids at your school doing that, it's gonna
Yeah.
bring scrutiny to you.
Yeah. And
Well, but if, I'm just sorry to interrupt.
no,
but I'm
go
just
for
saying
it.
If
Again,
you have one student working and getting paid, then your other kids are gonna say, well, why can't I work if so-and-so's working?
At a
Didn't it-
different school?
At my school, if I have one of my international kids working, my other international kids are gonna say, I wanna work too.
How many
and this-
on-campus employment positions do you have?
For tutoring, like our international kids, our Asian kids are very brilliant. And
Yeah,
yeah, and they could tutor, all of them could tutor all of our kids.
Okay,
that's okay.
Yeah,
It's
so,
not gonna be seen as like, because we're not human trafficking them, they're just Asian
They're
students.
just smart.
Yeah, they're just brilliant.
yeah,
technically, yes, they could work.
and this predominantly for me would just happen over the summer, because that's when they have like more free time. Like working around the school, if it's tutoring,
Yeah.
like that won't be a lot of the kids anyways, and there'll be like privileges that you can do this because you've been here more than 1 year, you're an
Okay.
upperclassman, all these things, so there's qualifications to
Mhm.
how that, I just wanted to make sure that if they're employed by the school, that's legal, because that was my understanding, so.
In the last session, you mentioned about, in conjunction with the same topic, if they volunteer. Could you speak to that for this group as well?
Yeah, paid or unpaid, it doesn't matter. Volunteering needs to be in the servitude of the student body. So no volunteering for the local animal shelter. No mowing lawns for the elderly.
So volunteering's the same thing, even if they're
Paid or
not
unpaid.
paid, okay. So if the school organizes volunteering within the community, so like we have a local pantry for people in need, and the school has a group that's going out and helping out with that, is that okay? Cause it's like part of
Maybe,
a
and here's
club.
the reason why.
Okay.
Many Christian and religious schools have a community service requirement component to their school.
Yeah,
So in a situation like that, where it's in your school guide, where it's in your, where it's written down, the students have to do this, case by case basis, I would say, yes, that is acceptable. That's volunteering work that is acceptable. Because it's a requirement of the school for the religious purposes.
mhm.
Does that make sense? It's written down.
So if you can make sure it's part of the curriculum, not the extracurriculars. So like you just described something that's written in the curriculum.
Oh, no, I didn't say curriculum.
Okay,
I said school
like
policy.
it's a requirement, yeah. So let's say that I have a group of kids through our like international club that is singing Christmas carols at like a senior citizen home. Is that fine to go out and just like volunteer your time to be singing? Or if there's Shining Through Christ volunteer organization club within our school, they're going to Peter's Pantry to help just organize a pantry for when they have people that come in. Are things like that okay? Or if it's not written in the policy of the curriculum?
I'm not gonna touch that question.
Okay.
And the reason is, if your school has a volunteer or community service section to it, I'm gonna leave it up to you to decide what that community service is. I'm
Yeah,
not gonna get involved with that because that's your school and your concepts.
okay,
So it's up to your school to decide whether or not that fulfills the community service obligation.
okay,
Does that make sense?
yep, sounds good.
Okay. All right, go ahead.
No, I'm good. Just my name.
Okay.
Yeah.
change of status. You're not really gonna have this because you've got K-12. The only time you're really gonna have this is if you have a dependent of an F1. If, say, the F1 parent is studying at university and they bring their dependent, their child who is an F2. 21 is the magic CVIS number. At the age of 21, students age out of being able to be a dependent. So they would have to apply for a change of status from F2 for their own F1 if they wanted to remain in the US after the age of 21. You're probably not going to see that because the kids are probably going to prepare and have their own F1 anyway. Another thing that actually you may see is over the summer, students come in and they shop schools. They enter the United States on a B visitor's visa. B visitors are not eligible for academic study at all. So in that situation, you would have two choices. Choice one, they could apply for a change of status and remain in the United States with their I-20, and having submitted an application to change their visa from B to F with USCIS by filing the I-539. I advise against that because it takes 12 to 14 months for that application to go through. In the meantime, they can do no studying, they can go to no classes, they can do nothing but sit there and play video games, which they would love.
Yeah.
So I advise against that. I would advise the option two, if they come in on a B, issue them an I-20, have them exit the United States, get a visa, and re-enter on your I-20 validating it. Yeah.
Now, if they do that, is it, I think I already know the answer, I'm gonna ask it. So should they go back to their country of residence, or is it just any country outside of the US and go to a US embassy and apply for that F1 visa? So say like they're from China, but then they just go to Canada. Could they apply at a US embassy in Canada?
We don't say they have to go home, they just can't stay here.
Yeah, okay. I want to make sure, because I was talking to a rep on the phone and they made it just sound like this is the better way. That wasn't my understanding. Like when I had talked with other reps.
You can do that,
so,
yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
yeah, I'm just asking because like if I can absorb more information, it's easier to advise.
so during COVID, I got a lot of DSOs contacting me stating, the embassies are all closed in our continent. What do we do? No, seriously, in Africa, all of the US embassies closed down during COVID. And DSOs were calling saying, all of the embassies here on our continent are closed. What do we do? You can make a visa appointment with another embassy in another state or country. So yeah, it's legal.
That's what I was advised, that
Yeah.
if you have the means to find the earliest available visa slot or slot at an embassy, go and make that appointment at that embassy.
In whatever country,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, and
Okay.
so
Yeah.
that's what I've been.
No, that's been my understanding, but
No, that's
recently I spoke with someone on the phone and they were kind of like leading me or like alluding to this way is maybe better. So
So
it's
I
nice
don't
talking
know
to.
the situation or the specifics of the question and the background for the question, so that answer may have been correct.
Yeah,
I'm
well,
giving
it's
the
just like
generalized
if they're
answer.
currently B2 and they can get an I-20, can they go to any country or should they go back to their resident country?
Okay, that's a good question. A B2 is a visitor visa. They can go to any country, but it probably would be faster and easier to go to their home country
Okay.
because they're a child.
Got it.
So,
That makes sense.
but they can go to any country.
Okay. Cool. And that's kind of what they said. So,
Oh,
but they just made it sound like firmer that it shouldn't happen in another country, it should happen in their home country. So
so working for the government, you learn there is no black, there is no white, it's all gray.
yeah, and that's why I appreciate talking to multiple people, because it's like more, how does the government see it?
So in this situation, you can do that, but
Mhm.
for a child, it'd probably be faster and easier to go to the child's home country.
Okay.
All right, so filing the I-539 with USCIS, that's the change of status application from one visa category to another. Honestly, a B or a dependent F2, that's the only time you're ever gonna see it. Okay. During COVID, SEVP allowed the I-20 to be signed electronically. That was so popular, the I-20 can now continually be signed electronically forever now. It's a permanent feature. When you issue a new and issue I-20, you need to sign page 1 of the I-20 authorizing it. You send it to the student overseas, their parent or them sign the front page of the I-20. You send it electronically, then they use that to get a visa, pay the I-91 fee and come to the US. After 1 academic year, they are eligible for a vacation. Then you, as the DSO, would need to sign page 2 of the I-20 authorizing travel. I advise that anytime you have vacation, anytime your student travels, period, in the US outside, you make them come to you and get a signature. And the reason for that is kids may not realize Ontario's in another country. And so they tell you, oh, my family is going to Ontario for the summer. And then you can say, unfortunately, your country does not have an agreement with Canada, which is in another country, so you may need a visa to go there. So I would highly advise anytime they travel, even if it's in country, they come to you for a signature, but the signature is valid up to a year, so that's totally up to you.
So let's say that you have a student who comes in second semester, but you still want them to go home for the summer. Is that technically considered a 1 academic year before you can sign it or no? Yes,
that is, so if you look at the Code of Federal Regulations, it states after 1 academic year or DSO deems the student has intention of returning. So you can, if they come in for 1 semester, they can take summer off.
Okay, so we can't sign it before that 1 academic year for them to.
No, you can sign it for summer.
Okay, so like they came in August and they came in January and then they can go home during the summer. Okay.
And you would sign page 2 authorizing the travel.
But if they came to us in August and then they want to go back home for like Christmas vacation in December.
You don't need it. You need to sign page 2 of the I-20, but there's nothing you need to do in CVIS.
Okay.
I have a question. I have a student, I let all my students go home. Obviously, it's summer. They went home. I did not sign anything for them to come back into the country yet. Does that make sense? Like I let them go home, and in order to come back into the country, is that what you're talking on page 2 that needs to be signed?
No.
CBP is going to look for that.
Okay, so can I do that now before?
I would advise, yes.
Okay.
I would sign it and email it so that they have that at the border when re-entering. Now, most of the time, CBP is quite understandable and they work with K-12 kids because they're probably nervous. And they may reach out to you and go, hey, did you authorize travel? Or they may just go, it's okay, go on.
Yeah.
I have a question about the electronic copy.
Absolutely.
So I know that it's all digital and I sent an I-20 recently, but the family was like badgering me for an original copy as well.
Okay.
But I want to know, is it necessary?
It is completely up to your school policy on how we're not going to tell you how to do your paperwork.
Okay.
Did you, I download mine and then attach it in an email.
Yeah, that's what I sent it in an email and then they were like, can you mail her a copy? And I was like,
I think that's the old model, isn't that?
What country?
Korean.
Okay. So all embassies around the world should have no problem accepting an electronic copy of the I-20. Now, there are some embassies in the world that they have stodgy old people that work there that say, I don't care if you have an electronic one, I want a paper copy. Just send it to them.
Okay.
Make it easy, just send it to them. They should accept an electronic copy, but why fight it?
I've worked with some agents that are just used to the process before, and we're more informed than they are, since we're the ones that are certified, authorized to work with CVIP or through CVIS. And then it's like educating our agents that no, this is now.
This is a parent. So,
oh yeah, okay.
This is a parent.
So, and they might be used to it also. I've ran into that where it's like COVID changed some things, and this is a pretty big thing for us because we don't have to
Right.
like for me at least, it's a drive out of where I live to a bigger FedEx that can ship internationally more easily. So it's more traumatic maybe, but it's just so much easier sending electronically and saying, this is now okay,
It's more
because
cost effective.
with COVID, this is not something that happens, so.
Speaking of
Well, yeah,
sending an
I got
I-20,
you.
you can send it electronically, but please remember the I-20 is a legal living document. It does not belong to you. It does not belong to the student. It belongs to the US government. Therefore, do not send it to a recruiter. It must be sent directly to the child or the child's parents, guardian.
I had an agency in the last year that wanted all the, like, one of the copies, and I was fairly new, and I was like, absolutely not. Like, I
Good.
do know that I can't, and they badgered me. I'm like, no.
You don't know if they're selling the I-20s.
Well, that's what it felt like, and I was like, okay, I don't like this. This is making me feel creepy.
Yeah.
It is crazy, huh?
I know.
Yeah, I only send it to families.
Yeah.
Which is what you legally should do. So if you have a recruiter that says, send them all to me, don't. By law, you can't. You're right. Okay, when you go in to create a new when you go in to create an I-20, you're going to choose one of these, initial attendance or initial attendance change of status. So that change of status is if they're doing an F2 to an F1, if they're coming in on a B and going to an F. You're probably never going to use that. You're always going to choose initial attendance. Oh, yeah, let me point this out. Given name, passport name, preferred name. Their passport name is their legal name. Their preferred name is not their legal name. It's just what they want to be called. A lot of times you'll have students choosing westernized names and you only know their westernized name. Put it here. That way you can match the I-20 to the student faster. So if you have a student, Hanfula, and he says, call me Frank Han. Well, passport name, Hanfula. Preferred name, Frank Han. And at the end of the semester, he decides he doesn't like Frank and he wants to be called Francis. You can update it anytime. It's by semester. So if you have primary school students, they're going to change it like every other semester. And you can update that and change that anytime. And I would advise that.
I appreciated that example. That was fast. That name specifically, so thank you for that.
Okay, I'm really gonna skip this because we've already talked about the change of status options. Issue reasons, we just talked about that. Initial attendance, change of status. You're not really gonna be choosing the change of status attendance. You're gonna be choosing initial attendance. Sample form I-20. This is what an I-20 looks like when you print it out. If you look in the huge letter over there in 20 font, that is F1, class of admission. That will say F1 or M1, okay? And M1 is vocational, you'll never have that. M1, Visa, those are vocational schools like beauty, farrier, horseshoeing massage, they're learning a skill. F1 is academic, they're here for degree or program of study. Yeah.
J1 is for public.
So a J1 is an exchange visitor.
Okay.
So an I-20 is to an F1 as a DS 2019 is to a J1.
I have a question on that.
Yeah.
Can a school be offer F1s and J1s?
Yes.
Oh, we
A
can.
private school.
A private Christian school can.
You would have to apply to Department of State.
To issue I-20 or issue
Yes.
J.
I was told that we could only do F1.
That's what I've been told too. Has anyone heard anything different?
So it is two programs.
Separate, yeah.
So CVIS, the computer system, operates both the F1 M1 program and the J1 program. But there's a different login system for the J1 as that's from M1 F1. This is operated by Department of State. This is F&M is operated by Department of Homeland Security. So
it's different certification.
Yeah.
Also, yeah. Okay.
So it's different certification, but both are in the same system.
How long does it take to get to become certified?
For CVIS certification for an F&M, I would say about 1.5 years.
Okay. And then for a J,
Can't answer that one.
okay, you don't know.
No, I don't know.
Okay, so help me understand. So is that because it's not part of CVIS?
So I like to say F and M I-20s are like unique snowflakes. Each one's different, but I can pretty much answer any questions with the CFR, Code of Federal Regulations. With a J1, I like to call those unique blizzards. Because each and every DS 2019 is created for that individual student. So there is no general answer in the CFR. Every single one is unique and individual. That's why that goes through Department of State. They're exchange visitors. They might be here to teach at university. They might be a high school student here for 1 year only for cultural exchange. Doesn't care about grades, we don't care. M1s, we care about grades. But a J1, nah, he's just here to play and go to Disneyland.
J1's only up to a year? Is that-
Again,
is that
each
the-
program is different.
Okay, all right.
The high schoolers, yes.
Oh, okay, so high school is J1, only a year.
And that's the reason that we don't do it, is
Yeah.
because
Yeah,
we're not, it has to be academic.
Yep.
Okay.
that's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
That's a very good
So
way
I'm
to
just
put it.
trying to.
I can answer, your field rep can answer any F or M question. We can answer general, J, but not specific. You'd have to speak to the program sponsor or Department of State Visa Inquiries to get the DS 2019 J1 questions answered. Okay,
Thank you.
absolutely. So thank you for asking. On your I-20 here, you've got preferred name, country, date of birth, citizenship. Hold on, where is it? There should be an email there someplace. Students age 14 and above require an email address. We don't care which one. It can be the school's email address or their personal email address. However, if you've got students who are graduating high school and moving on to university, I highly advise you give them, you put in their personal email so that if they have any questions when they get to university, or we need to send them something when they get to university, it doesn't go to their high school email, which they've no longer looked at.
That's generally like on page 2 of issuing the I-20 or creating the initial I-20. But I have never seen, I guess, their
This is what it
email
looks like
show
when
up.
you print it out.
Yeah, I haven't seen their email show up on the printed form I-20.
Never paid attention.
But when
The
you create it though.
Yeah, it's in there on the second page.
Okay.
When you're clicking through.
Program of study. So you're going to have, as K-12, you're gonna have one of two education levels. You're gonna have primary and secondary. If your student matriculates from primary to secondary, at the end of May, you're going to need to do a change of program level from primary school to secondary on their I-20. So if they matriculate on primary to secondary, you're gonna have to change that. Now, if you are primary and you pull that up, there is only one CIP code for primary. That's it, you just get one choice. For secondary, there are 10 choices. You need to choose the one that best is an example of your school. Most people choose college prep. Yes.
For CVIS, is K-8 considered primary? Because we go to middle school after 5th grade, so they transition.
So I have a personal opinion, but I can't have personal opinions. It varies by state as to what your state considers primary to secondary. I would think 1 to 5 is primary, 6 to 12 is secondary, but it's really what your school believes in that. So we don't have a specific cutoff because every school and state might have different ideas. Okay, so you would go from primary to secondary for the education level at the end of that, their primary year, the fifth year. All right, financials. On financials, you have 2 columns. Column 1, column 2. You have financials and what's the other column? Financials and expenses.
Student funding.
Okay.
So
So-
how much will it cost and how much where's the funds coming from?
Mhm.
Yeah, so this is what I like to say. They have to prove they have the money in column A, but they don't have to spend it in column B. According to the Code of Federal Regulations, prior to being able to issue an I-20, you must accept documentation from the student proving that they have funds to support themselves in the United States for a minimum of 1 academic year. Unfortunately, the CFR does not state how, so it leaves you to be the adjudicator to decide, is this bank statement the student has provided to me legal or not? So that's really honestly up to your school to adjudicate it. There are 9 million ways to prove that they have the funding: a paid in full receipt, a scholarship from the school. For example, tuition and fees, that's normal, what your school would charge. Living expenses, you have to put living expenses. How much would it cost for a student to live in an apartment with food and transportation to your school for 1 academic year, 8 months? Let's say $12,000. However, in column B, they're going to be living with their aunt. So $12,000 provided by aunt, or living with aunt. So that can be, they have to prove they have it, but what is the proof? A letter stating that they'll be living with their aunt. Does that make sense?
So then the amount would be 0 because you're living with the aunt?
No,
No.
because she's providing X amount of income.
Okay.
So the student has to prove they have this, but one of the portions of this could be a scholarship letter, could be a letter from the aunt, could be a paid in full receipt,
Okay.
could be a bank statement, could be a sponsorship. I mean, there's 9 million ways to prove it. They have to show that they have this, but they don't necessarily have to spend it. Does that make sense? Okay, before you can issue an I-20, you have to gather that. Don't forget, you must maintain the records on this student for a minimum of 3 years from the program end date. Financial documentation is one of the things you have to maintain in that file. SCDP mandates that you must maintain it for 3 years. It doesn't mandate how. You can do it electronic, paper, totally up to school. We're not going to tell you how to manage your files. Okay.
So after 3 years, we can toss everything.
Most school districts keep the records for like 5 to 7 years, but yes, you can. Now, as I mentioned in my earlier meeting or earlier lecture, 10 years from now, if the student is applying for a green card, SCVP cannot provide old copies of their I-20. If they have lost old copies of their I-20, you are their only hope.
Oh, they would have copies of it from their parents when they initially came in.
Well, no, but 10 years from now, if they need a copy of every I-20 so they can file for a green card, they can't get it from us. And if they've lost it, you're the only place they could get a copy of it from the files. So it's up to you. By law, 3 years, totally up to you otherwise.
It should be in their cum file, which, like their cumulative file, their academic
Yes.
file.
Sign page 1 of the I-20, and they sign page 1 of the I-20. Remarks. Anytime you do something to the student's record, like if the program start date is January 20th, but your school has orientation January 10th, the program start date of it, where is the program start date? Here somewhere.
It's
Oh, here we go, right there. Start of classes, January 10, 2017. Wow, okay. If
They've aged out by now.
I know.
so if the program start date is January 20th and you want them here January 10th, you would put January 20th here. But then in the remarks, student must be in the United States on January 10th for orientation, because the student can arrive in the US up to 30 days prior to that program start date. Okay. All right, any questions about the I-20?
So you should not put the orientation date as the start date.
No, we don't care about them getting it settled. We don't care about them walking graduation. We only care about their academic life. So the I-20 should be first day of class to last day of class. And this is actually a really good point. When you issue an I-20, you don't know what the last day of class 4 years from now is going to be. So you guesstimate, and that is perfectly acceptable.
We use the last day of May.
That's perfectly acceptable. But the last semester, when you go in to register for the final time, you register with the correct dates, session end date, the last day of school, and then you go up and you shorten or extend the program end date to match the session end date. Okay, we already discussed this. This can be found in Study in the States. You can print this out. All right, we had talked about that. We're not going to go into that. Change of education level, we talked about. Transferring. When a student is transferring from one SEVA certified school to another. Now remember, they can't transfer to a non-SEVA certified school. You will get that question. And they're like, how do I transfer to this school? They're not SEVA certified. Well, the answer is you can't. So when you transfer from one SEVA certified school to another, I advise getting 3 pieces of information. Number 1, that the student actually has been accepted. Because just because they say transfer by record to Harvard doesn't mean they got in. Number 2, for what start date. You don't need the start date to transfer, but it helps you to better advise the student. Because remember, once you transfer it out and the other school transfers it in, that student then can only re-enter the US if they go home over the summer up to 30 days prior to their session start date. So if they've got 3 months and they're planning on spending a week in the Bahamas, you better tell them that you can only do that like a week before that 30 days. Otherwise, you're gonna be there a while. The third thing that you need to keep is the exact school name and school code. University of Georgia has like 6, 9 campuses in my territory alone. So which campus do you send it to? Now, what I've advised is you have the student, you send an email to the student stating, I need these 3 things, please have the DSO at X school email me. And then have the student be your intermediary, thank you, to the DSO, and then the DSO emails you that information. Yeah.
And I'll just ask the coordinator or the point of contact at the school for the information, and usually there's a form that the student and I fill out together.
Yeah.
With the school's code on there. And like I have one too if students want to transfer in from like a J1, like a public high school experience, and want to stay in the area and then go to a private school.
Okay.
Sorry, not that.
Did you see my face?
No, I do, and no, and so I noticed. No, so it was a different F1 school, and they want to come to our school, so they have a CVIS record, and then I will send our information, a transfer-in sheet to that school, so they have our information, and then they can let me know when to expect this form to come in.
So there is no specific form. Schools create their own. So there is no unified form, but many of the larger universities, they actually have a transfer form, but there's no official form.
You may have covered this when I came in, sorry, our class got canceled at the last minute.
Oh my God, you chose my class because your class got canceled?
I'm sorry.
I am your second choice? Sorry about that.
You're my first.
Sorry, but
My
yeah.
first.
I made a mistake, yeah. Yes. So I have a student who will be leaving, well, in the summer, they plan to go to a camp
Okay.
while they're here. So
What kind of camp?
I think music or something like that, music camp or something,
Recreational.
yes.
Okay.
So I know that our I-20 is good for, is it 30 days after they come out? How long is the I-20 good for once school ends?
60. From the program end date,
Mhm.
the student has 60 days.
Okay.
This is a one-pager that can be found on studyinthestates.dhs.gov. I highly advise you print this out. You can send this to students in the orientation package. You can link to it on your website. It takes you through the entire process with timelines. So down here at the end, student has 60 days from the program end date to do something. They can transfer to another school, they can extend their program of study, they can go to Disneyland, they can go to summer camp. However, by that 60th day, the record will auto-complete.
So I'm gonna back up a little bit from that, from what you just said. The program end date is not the date that the school year ends, but it's the date that the student is finished at the school. When I was talking to another CVIS rep, I was trying to understand that. What is the program end date? So
First day of class to last day of class.
okay,
So you don't know what the last day of class 4 years is gonna be, so you guess. But that last semester, when you go in to register for the final time, you register with the correct last day of class as the session end date. And then you go up and you either shorten or extend the program end date to match that session end date.
okay.
Does that make sense?
Okay, so I'm confusing session and program. Okay, so I guess my question was just, as summer approaches, does the student have to go home? Or,
He's got 60 days,
Okay.
but if he leaves, he can't return.
got it? That's what I need to know.
Is he gonna go to university?
No, he's coming back to us.
But then you should be extending that I-20 for the following year so that he's not going to hit that 60 days.
Yes. Okay,
Okay,
I'm just asking, this is a hypothetical question.
okay,
So,
okay.
yeah, we've had, so this student who's at our school is at our school part-time. He has an I-20 from another school, a conservatory, and
Uh-huh.
they do some of their academic course at our school.
Concurrent enrollment.
Is that what that's called?
Yes.
Okay, let me write that down, because I often wonder, how can they do this?
Concurrent enrollment. One school issues the I-20s, manages all grades, classes, full course of study. But the student has, but the school has an agreement with another school where they can take those classes at that high school
Yes,
to transfer to this high school, as long as the other school is CETA certified as well.
yes.
You can never refuse to transfer a record. If a student comes to you and says, transfer my record, you have to transfer it. And you can transfer it at any time, mid-semester. So if the student comes to you in January, February, March and says, yeah, I'll transfer my record to the university, you can transfer the record immediately. They are finished at your school. They can't attend the last 2 months. But you can transfer it in May.
Did you say they can't? Or
They can't. After you
once-
transferred the record, they're done at your
done.
school. So if they want to go to university, but they want to finish at your school, tell them you will transfer the I-20 the day after their program end date. Okay. Transfer terminology. So transfer request date, that's the date that they asked to be transferred. Transfer release date, that's the date you put in CVIS that you want the I-20 to be released. You can go in there 2 weeks before graduation and put in a release date for the future, which I think is a cool feature.
That's nice.
Complete date when the other school takes in the record. This basically goes over what you should collect from the other school. However, if you just remember those 3 pieces of information, that's all you need. They were accepted for what date, exact name and school code. That's all you really need. Transferring in and out. This one pager is located on Study in the States. You can print this out and it takes you through what's the steps for transferring in a student and transferring out a student.
I'm just finding it.
And here's transferring in. The other one is transferring out. You can go and
All of
study
this
the
is
state.
on our, right?
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, it is, okay.
Okay, 5 months. there are several numbers that are special numbers to CVIS and SEVP. 21 days is a magic CVIS number, blackjack, because a student ages out at age 21. You have 21 days to update a student's I-20 to make any updates to their address, email, program of study. You have 21 days from the event occurring that something changes on your I-17 to update your school's information within CVIS on the I-17. So 21 days is the blackjack. That's the magic CVIS number. Students age out and you have to have corrected something. 5 months is the other CVIS special number. So the 5-month rule. From last day of class to first day of class, 5 months cannot have passed. So if you transfer out a student, and they have to begin school within 5 months at the other school, or they'll need a new initial I-20 and possibly a new visa. So if you have a student who has gone home over the summer and they decide to skip a semester, well, from last day of class to first day of class, 5 months cannot have passed. If 5 months passes, they need a new initial I-20. Okay, transferring. Okay, we talked about that. Okay, this is a good one. What would prevent you from transferring a student? Requested change of education level. I actually had a problem with the DSO saying, I tried to transfer the student. They just graduated, but they won't transfer. And I pulled up the student's record and I said, why is the student in primary school? They'd never changed the education level on the student. So she updated that and was able to immediately transfer it out. Make sure the student has the correct education level. Also, make sure that the student doesn't have another request, like a change of status. For example, if they're an F2 and they're applying for their own F1, they can't leave the country, and it may stop them from transferring their I-20, but they should, if they're going from F2 to F1, they can transfer the I-20, but they can't leave the country during that. Otherwise, it'll cancel that change of status. Does that make sense?
Would you recommend, I mean, I've never had that, an F2, is that what you called it? Would you recommend, say it was a student graduated, they're going off to university, would you recommend instead of waiting till 21 to do that closer to 18 or?
I would advise doing it no later than 19 because it takes about 1.5 years for the change of status to go through. And if you apply at age 20, they're going to age out before the change of status processes, and they'll have to leave the US.
Okay.
So if they're doing a change of status from an F2 to F1, start it no later than age 19.
If a family is coming over on a work visa, I don't know what status that is.
H1B.
1B, okay.
H.
Yeah. H, okay. And they have children that they have to apply for the F1 visa?
Yeah.
For the children, how does that work?
So an H1, workers that come to the United States may bring their children as dependents. They would be the H2s. So anything with a 2 at the end is a dependent. Those worker students, children, are eligible for academic study and can go to K-12, and you wouldn't need to issue them an I-20 or anything because they're here on their parents' visa. However, if their parents' job is terminated or their parents leave the US, the students need to exit as well. And I would advise you to keep a copy of that visa in the student's record, even though you're not creating anything in CVIS.
The parents' visa?
Yeah.
But they would fall under the international admissions process or? No, domestic.
I think then that just, what kind of programming does the school want to offer to that student? Because we have a kid from China, but his dad's been on a work visa the whole time I've been at the high school for the last 7 years. And so he's finally entering high school. So he's a Chinese student, but he grew up in America. So culturally it'll be interesting, but he's not receiving any of the programming that we offer. So it's just like domestic rate.
Reduced course load. You can have reduced course load for one of three reasons. The first and the second reason are not eligible for K-12 because you have to be there 9 to 5 anyway. Reason number one, due to difficulties with the Westernized teaching standard, a student can request reduced course load the very first semester. They've got to be at your school 9 to 5 anyway. Number two, it's the student's last semester and maybe they only have 1 or 2 classes to graduate. Doesn't matter, they have to be there 9 to 5 at your school anyway. So 1 and 2 don't qualify. Number 3 does qualify, and that's for medical reasons. A student with a letter from a doctor, osteopathic, clinical psychologist, physical surgeon can request reduced course load. Hopefully you never have this, but it is available to you if necessary. This happened about 5 years ago. There was a high school student, they went skiing over the weekend, and he was in a horrible accident, was put in induced a coma. He had brain swelling, and so they put him in a coma. He had reduced course load for the first semester, and then the second semester, he came back for half days, going to school in the morning and physical therapy in the afternoon. So a student with a letter from a doctor put into their student records and folder can request reduced course load, or guardian, but only for a maximum of 1 year. If the student requires more than that 1 year, then they're gonna have to go home.
Because then they're not being here for education.
Okay, completion. Let me see if I can find it real quick. I'm just gonna skip this one and say, never complete a student's record. It will auto-complete on the 60th day. Okay, you're gonna cause yourself paperwork and tears if you complete records. Because students will come to you and swear that they are going home for university and they're never coming back to the US, and you complete their records and then their parents call you screaming because they told their kid to have you transfer the record to X school. Don't complete the record, they've got 60 days. Give them that 60 days, let it auto-complete. Save yourself time and worry, just don't do it. You don't have to, why worry about it?
That sounds awesome, yeah.
I had that happen. A student was like, I'm going back to Germany, and then he's like, I'm actually gonna go to GCU, and can you transfer my, I'm like, thankfully I didn't turn, yeah.
Yeah.
So just let it autocomplete, don't even worry about it. 60th day it will. And that way, if a student does need to transfer or do anything, they can come to you, but after that 60th day, you have a legal obligation, you have the legal ability to say, no, you didn't come to me, it auto-completed.
I do have a question. It has nothing to do with termination, but we're getting a lot of requests from like Ukrainian families that are on like a Ukrainian
TPS, temporary protective status,
yes.
or special student relief.
Yes, so we are not allowed to take them as international like students with that I-20 F1 visa, correct?
Why wouldn't you? Just because they're on TPS or SSR doesn't mean they can't apply for an F1 visa.
Can they apply when they're already in the United States? Because I have families that are already here.
I would talk to your specific field rep because I don't know that situation.
Okay.
So I would talk to them because that sounds like it's going to be a case specific study.
Okay.
But in general, yeah, that TPS is only special benefit allotment. It's not any visa thing. They'd also have to have some type of visa to enter the US.
Yeah.
All right, termination reasons. Termination is a bad thing. If you terminate a student, they will forever, for the rest of their life, always get pulled into secondary. So when they check into the US, you know, that little kiosk, they look at you, why are you here? They will always then send you to the second desk. Now, if you terminate a student, no, that's because that guy doesn't have 30 seconds to look at the record and see that the termination was 5 years ago. And the student is perfectly fine. But the student will have to go over to secondary, and the guy there will go, no, you're good. Or, ooh, we're gonna need you to step in the back.
you go.
Yeah.
That's one way to strike fear into students for the rest of their lives, huh?
Well, I
I
mean,
made a permanent mark on your life now.
now, termination is bad, except for authorized early withdrawal. Authorized early withdrawal is the only termination reason that it's not a bad one, because it just means through nobody's fault, the student had to leave the US prior to the program end date. So authorized early withdrawal, you've got your 5-month rule. If the student says in April, I don't feel well, I want to go home. So you can terminate midterm for authorized early withdrawal. If the student can return within 5 months, then you can make a correction to the student status, changing the authorized early withdrawal termination back to active. None of these others. Okay, remember, from last day of class to first day of class, 5 months cannot have passed. Now, termination reasons you have access to, but should never choose, I don't understand why. These are choices that are done by other government agencies. They are done by USCIS or SEVP. School withdrawn does not mean that the school is withdrawing their application for the student. It means that the school has lost their CEVIS certification. Don't choose that. So this is a one-pager that's on Studying the States. You can print this out. Don't choose the small one. Now the large gray box. The small gray box, those are automatic terminations, or you can also terminate. So a new initial student or a new initial transfer student must be registered within CEVIS no later than 30 days from the session start date, or they will be auto-terminated. But maybe your school has a, if you don't show up by the 3rd day of class, you can go in and terminate for failure to enroll. Okay, so those are the termination reasons. Any questions about that? Okay. Correction requests. So if a student does something bad, you terminate. Smoking in the boys' bathroom, robbed a convenience store. If they did something bad, you terminate the record. If the school wishes to retain the student, they can allow the student to file for reinstatement with USCIS and pay a fee to change the record from terminated back to active. If the student did something bad and the school wishes to keep them, they can allow the student to file for reinstatement. But if the school did something bad and accidentally terminated the record or did something bad to the student's record, that's a correction request. So reinstatement, the student did something bad. Correction request, the school did something bad. The one that I see the most often is a DSO will call me and say, oh, my students are gone. Where are they? And I say, check the terminated student list. And she's like, they're there. That's because you may have failed to register a student. And if you do not register a student in a timely manner, the student will be auto-terminated. That's not the student's fault, you messed up. Okay, so that's not reinstatement because the student didn't register. It's your fault, the school's fault, for not registering the student, so that's a correction request. The process for a correction request is you go into CEVIS, you go to the student's record, you make a correction to the student's status from terminated back to active, and then you leave a remark. Student auto-terminated due to school's failure to register in a timely manner. Something like that. And then you do that to every single record that was accidentally terminated because you failed to register. If you need to expedite, if you need that record corrected immediately because all the records got terminated last March and students went home for the summer and they're coming back for August and it's July, you can contact the CEVIS help desk and request to expedite the correction request you just submitted within CEVIS because the students will be returning the following week. And you can have the record changed from terminated back to active. Okay? Right. Okay, studyingthestates.dhs.gov, book market. I'm not joking. I'm literally on that website every day. And yes, that does include weekends because I have no life. I love my job. What?
No, I'm thankful for you. I was gonna say I'm sorry because you said I have no life. And then you said you love your job. I was like, nope, never mind. I'm thankful for you.
I mean, I want to work on the weekend. Although my section chief said I have to stop taking my phone on vacation.
Well, I mean, that sounds healthy.
Okay, so yeah. Yeah.
I'm glad you're here. This is fun.
So Study the States, check it out. Most important resource library. There's a ton of one-pagers. What can a PDSO do that a DSO can't? What are the record-keeping requirements? How do you transfer in? How do you transfer out? What is the student life cycle? How do you submit an I-17 update?
How long does it take to add a DSO?
It depends. Are you doing any other updates or are you just adding the
I'm
DSO?
just adding a DSO.
Should be about 15 days.
Yeah, I was really quick and I got added.
These are important websites you should know as a DSO. USCIS.gov. This is for change of status or reinstatement. Travel.state.gov is your contact for J1. CBP deferred inspection. If you've got CBP questions, it goes there. CBP, that's Customs and Border, if you need to print out the I-94. The I-94 is that obnoxious little green card you get when you enter or exit the US and you immediately throw away. If you need a copy of that, that's where you go.
Awesome. It really is because students ask, what is this? It's like, well, I can give you info easily. I can just look it up and get it right to you, so it's less complicated.
We're on all of those websites, and here's my phone number, email. My cards are here on the back table. If you'd like one, please take it. Thank you all so much for joining me today.
Thank you. Did you say that Steve is on Instagram? Is that one of the social media links? I'm just kidding.
I think it might be like.
Were they? Because it's like,
Some,
man,
there are, I know
all
there's a
your
Facebook
Instas.
one.
Okay.
Oh, no, there's
Like,
just
what are you
Facebook.
guys doing today?
Yeah, I'm technologically challenged, so I had to have one of the kids set up the computer.
No, this is no, it's good. This was helpful because it is a lot of the nitty gritty and like just advising families, and then when you get questions like, no, send me this, it's like you actually don't need it.
Are
It's
you
okay.
the area rep for here?
Yes, I am.
You are. Oh, that's good.
So if you, where are you located?
In Arizona.
Oh, okay.
No, we have Melissa. Do you have Melissa? Who's
I
your rep?
haven't talked to her. I actually need to contact her because
Great.
I have a lot of questions sometimes.
Okay, someone told me.
Yeah, this is another question.
Someone told
I will
me,
stay if you have any
Oh, yeah.
questions, please
Okay.
ask.
someone said, yeah, don't contact your DSO with a lot of questions because you get dinged. And I was like,
Your field rep?
yeah, but this is another, she's a consul.
No,
She's a consultant. And
that's a lot.
I was like, oh, so now I'm like never talking to Melissa because I was like, and then I asked someone else that and they're like, no, that's not true.
No, if you have questions, if you know the answer and you just want to confirm it,
Yeah.
that's what I'm here for. I have PDSOs who are like, I don't want to bother you. And I'm like, my job is to be bothered.
Says call me.
Yeah.
Any question?
No,
I know.
don't call, email, because I don't answer my phone.
Yeah, but I can text Melissa. Melissa will text me back.
Yes, I do
I need
text.
her contact, please. Yeah, because I don't have it.
Yeah, if you have questions, reach out to your field rep. We are some of the nicest, smartest people you will meet.
Yes.
Although Melissa does have children.
A little girl, and she just has one. And she just got permanent. She was in El Paso, and then she was doing El Paso and Arizona, and now.
Well, I'm currently Western Georgia, Eastern Georgia, North Carolina, and Virginia.
All over the place.
I know. It's because I'm just so good at my job.
Yeah, clearly.
That's awesome.
No, this is nice. It's just
Yeah,
nice
thank you.
walking through it in person because
Yeah.
Yes.
It's one of
Sometimes
the-
we call and we're like, we want to meet, you know?
Oh, if you do call the help desk, you can leave your phone number, they keep you in line, and they call you back and you don't have to listen to that obnoxious music.
Can we leave a 5-star review for you if we call them?
No, but
Oh yes, perfect. I get Molly to review. Give you some kudos.
yeah. So where is it? Yeah, it's, where is it? Is it studyinthestates.dhs.gov, contact us, maybe? No, that would be awesome. Oh, by the way, that technical email, Steve's help desk, if you have a ghost in the system or a computer glitch, that's who you contact.
All right.
All right, any other
Thank you
questions?
so much.
No, thank you, Rebecca.